Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Chalk Talk here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Steelers YouTube channel. Chris Halicke here, explaining yet another football concept. Sometimes I like to get on a roll with these things. Yesterday, we went over both the bow and shock passing concepts, drop back passing concepts, and those two were obviously paired together on on the same play. You're reading, okay, is the defense in middle field open, midfield closed, and then you make your decision based off of that. And those two concepts aren't always paired together. Either way, this concept that we're going to go over today is called mesh. Now, this is not a, let's split the field in half and let's read this, with one concept on one side, one concept on the other side. Mesh is a full field read, and the basis of mesh really begins with two players, and it is usually, in this particular formation, it's going to be this guy and this guy. They are both running these drag routes. Okay, that is the whole crux. Everything else that happens based off of mesh starts with those two routes. There's always one that goes underneath, and we can see here with the Steelers, the way they're running it, that Austin goes underneath, Freiermuth goes over the top, okay? So, Austin's going underneath, he's running this drag right here, Freiermuth is going back over the top, and he's running this drag right here. Okay, so what that does, mesh by itself is primarily a man-beating concept, because what that does, when you have those two drag routes, it's going to create natural picks between defenders, because if defenders are lined up to cover those guys man on man, you're going to then run across, and without even trying to interfere, if you run them close enough to each other, you're going to create a natural pick for one of the other routes. Typically, the one that's underneath is the one that gets sprung free, but either way, depending on what happens with the defenders, whichever one usually one gets sprung free, or at least more free than the other. Mesh can be paired with a number of different routes from the other eligibles on the field. Here, the Steelers, you have three other eligibles, 1, 2, 3. Okay, those are the eligibles that are remaining. A lot of the time, and here what the Steelers have is they will have the one of the receivers on one side, which on this one it is Van Jefferson. He is going to run this kind of like curled to the middle of the field and kind of sit down, and that is primarily a way to solve against zone coverage. And I'll get into what these two drags underneath do if it is zone coverage. There's always usually one alert route. And, of course, it's George Pickens here. And sometimes it's just a straight-up go route. Sometimes it's kind of a skinny post, especially if it's against a midfield closed. Sometimes it's a corner route. It just depends. This one, Pickens kind of runs this kind of skinny post here where he goes up and then he kind of cuts to the middle of the field. So that's what Pickens is doing here. And then the running back can do a number of different things. He can, come up and be a pass protector. But again, what you'll see a lot of the time in mesh is that there will be some sort of wheel route, which is what Najee ends up doing on this particular play, this particular version of mesh. So that's the play. Now, again, I explained, okay, it's primarily a man beater, and you're looking for either one of these two guys to possibly get open against man because it's going to create picks. Well, what if it's zone coverage? If it's zone, let's clear the board here, which the Cowboys are in here. So let's actually fast forward a little bit. Don't worry about the results of the play. So notice that these defenders are not latching on. If this were man coverage, he'd be on him. And as Freiermuth were to run, he'd just start running with him, right? And this is why you see normally would see the underneath guy be the one who gets sprung free, because if he were to run with him and to run with Austin, he would run straight into Freiermuth, right? But the Cowboys aren't in man here. They're in zone. So what do the receivers do at this point if it's zone coverage? Well, you notice it by then. If you notice notice, like, watch Pat Freiermuth's vision. He is watching this guy right here. He's not worried about this guy because he knows that if it's man coverage, all I have to do is run, and I'm going to most likely spring Calvin Austin free on the mesh concept. So he's looking at this guy to see what he does. If he sees this guy sit, he knows, okay, it's zone. And Calvin's doing the same thing. He's watching this guy. And he knows if that guy sits and passes off Pat, it's zone. So what do? You sit down. You sit down you try to find a hole in the coverage, which the Cowboys are in cover 3 here, okay? And you can see that before the snap of the football. So for Justin Fields, he's going to see 1, 2, 3 deep defenders. That's most likely telling him, let's split the deep part of the field into thirds. So he's going to get this deep third. He's going to get this deep third. He's going to get that deep third. Right? So there's your cover. There's your 3 deep in cover 3. Then you always have 4 underneath the zones. And so that guy is going to get that. That guy's going to get that. That guy's going to get that. And that guy's going to get that. So there's your cover 3. Right? So where do you want to try to sit? Well, you want to try to sit in this window right here, or in that window right there, or in this window right here. You want to try to sit inside of a window if you're running this mesh concept. But the other thing that can happen based off of that whenever you go to run this is, remember this spot route right here. If you're running mesh against zone, these defenders are going to be very, very focused on these guys. Even though it's not man, they have to make sure that those guys are properly passed off. And then these guys are going to try to find a soft spot in wherever the zone is. Wherever, whatever zone coverage is, you're going to try to find that soft spot. But here, and Fields reads this correctly here, he's a little late on it because by the time this is opened up, I mean, again, you kind of want to throw this with anticipation, and it's one hitch too late. You'd like to get this out a little like instead of hitch, then throw, it should be more like hitch, then throw, right? Because it's already getting open. So that's why we actually went over that same chalk talk when we talked about quarterback anticipation. But here, these windows are going to open up. They have to respect what these guys are doing. He's running this way. He's running that way. Even though they're passing them off, they have to respect. They can't just leave this, window. Man, that's a terrible, terrible drawing. They can't just leave these windows wide open, right? They can't leave those windows wide open. So they have to account for that. And what ends up happening by those two guys getting at least enough width between the two of them, by doing that, they at least open up that throwing window, so now the spot route gets opened up, right? I mean, Van Jefferson's running pretty much to here and just stopping, and that's exactly what happens. It's opened up. The deep, you don't have to worry about this deep defender because this deep defender has to make sure that in case this is any kind of in-breaking route, so he can't just jump in on that, because if he does, this opens up completely, and that becomes an alert. So, took care of that. You don't have to worry about the wheel route, here from Najee. Typically you'd worry about that. Like if this were cover 1 and the linebacker were trying to, grab onto Najee and then run with him, you're only having to worry about if a safety is back deep. If it were cover 1. If that's not the case, then possibly you throw that wheel. The wheel is another alert type. It depends on the coverage. Those are your 2 alerts based off of mesh. And they're always going to be your deep routes. That's what an alert is. If the coverage dictates that you could possibly throw that, you like the matchup. If it's a one-on-one, you're not worried about the safety. If for whatever reason the safety is shaded over to this side and you've got a straight-up one-on-one right there, absolutely throw George Pickens that football. But that's not the case here. So He sees cover 3. He drops back. It's zone. Cover 3 is a zone defense. So he knows before, and he's probably already communicated this to his receivers. Hey, I'm seeing cover 3. So prepare for zone because you got 3 deep. 1, 2, 3. You got 3 deep. Let it play out. This opens up. If it's zone coverage, you're most likely not going to throw either one of those guys unless they just happen to get into a really, really soft spot in the zone. A lot of the time, this is going to end up getting open more times than anything, even though this is against middle field closed coverage. Remember, cover 3 is middle field closed, right? That's why you have this safety in the middle of the field. He is saying, no, you're not getting anything here. But the one thing with that is if you can keep these defenders low enough underneath, there's always going to be some sort of soft spot right here, which is exactly what happens. They run that quick little, I'll say quick. They run that, that stop, that curl, whatever, to the middle of the field. It opens up. It's right there. Van Jefferson makes a catch, moves the chains. Always good. So that's the mesh concept. You will see a lot of it. You will see Arthur Smith definitely uses it quite a bit. It's a very, very popular concept. Again, because of how versatile it is. You can run it against man coverage. It can beat man coverage. You can have the receivers that are running the 2 drags underneath. They can both, if they are facing zone coverage, as you can see, they can just find, run and then find a soft spot in the zone. Again, when you have concepts that can beat either man or zone, it's always a good thing to have in your bag. And then you can pair it with a number of different things. You can have, to go back here a little bit, you can have a quick, read to the flat there instead of the wheel here. You can have this quick read to the flat in case you don't like anything that's here in the middle of the field. If they're in straight up cover 2, which, yes, is a middle field close, but, cover 2, let's just map out cover 2. You have 5 guys underneath. It's really hard to run, a straight up cover 2 zone, or to run mesh against a cover 2 zone because you have 5, guys underneath. So that could either mean that you're going to run, if this is a post to the middle, okay, it's middle field open, so you can run that. Or you can just run a quick little, flat there to get the ball out. You don't have to worry about it. So it's a versatile concept. It's used by a lot of offensive coordinators. It's a really, really good one to have. It's one of my personal favorites, to be completely honest. I really like mesh. It's very reliable. It's versatile. It's not hard to read. It's just a good concept. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that one. We'll be back with one more Chalk Talk tomorrow before the end of the week. Hope you guys have a great Friday, obviously, tomorrow when we see each other next, or at least, talk to each other, whatever, since you don't see me right now. I'm a dork. Catch you guys tomorrow. See you later.